I was in a state of absolute terror.
At 61, Melissa Gilbert finally decided she could no longer carry the weight of silence. With a voice softened by time but sharpened by the truth, she revealed what Patty Duke had meant to her not just as a co-star, but as a mirror, reflecting everything beautiful and brutal about growing up in Hollywood. For viewers who had watched these women for decades, who remembered TV sets glowing in warm living rooms and a simpler America outside their windows, her confession felt like opening a long, sealed chapter in Hollywood history. And before she ever spoke a word about Patty Duke, Melissa's own life had already been an extraordinary journey shaped by fame, family, and a resilience that only the toughest child stars ever survive. Melissa Gilbert was born Melissa Ellen Gilbert on May 8, 1964, in Los Angeles, California. Placed into the arms of actor and comedian Paul Gilbert and his wife Barbara Crane as an infant. While most children grow into Hollywood through dreams, Melissa entered through a doorway already built for her. She grew up surrounded by sets, lights, and the warm, familiar scent of film studio corridors. Even as a child, she understood that the entertainment world was both magical and merciless. Yet she moved through it with an early instinct, an understanding that to last in Hollywood, you had to be both soft and unbreakable. Her resilience, even as a girl, made her stand out. That resilience propelled her into her life-changing role at only 9 years old. When she landed Laura Ingalls Wilder on Little House on the Prairie in 1974, she instantly became America's daughter. Families across the country tuned in weekly, gathering after dinner to watch Melissa's earnest eyes and heartfelt performances capture everything tender, wholesome, and deeply human about pioneer life. For older Americans today, the show remains a warm memory of a world where values mattered and stories were simple yet profound. Melissa's portrayal of Half Pint became iconic because she didn't act like a child pretending to feel. She felt everything. Michael Landon saw that spark in her from the very beginning. He guided her, protected her, and shaped her into one of the most beloved young actresses of the era. And week after week, audiences felt like they were watching a real daughter grow up in front of them. But viewers saw only the light. Behind it, Melissa was beginning to understand what every actor learns. Fame is a double-edged sword. When Little House ended in 1983, she stepped into adulthood, carrying both incredible momentum and the weight of expectations. She refused to fade away, quickly proving she wasn't just a child star relic. The 1979 remake of The Miracle Worker revealed a different Melissa, fierce, raw, emotionally fearless. Playing Helen Keller demanded everything she had. And beside her, portraying Anne Sullivan, was Patty Duke, the legendary actress who had played Keller herself as a teenager. Their connection on set was intense, complicated, unforgettable. Melissa didn't know then how deeply Patty's life story would carve itself into her own understanding of Hollywood, but she felt it everyone did. Patty carried storms inside her, storms Melissa sensed, but couldn't yet comprehend. Over the next 2 decades, Melissa's career expanded into a wide range of television films and series. In Choices of the Heart, her role as missionary Jean Donovan showcased a level of emotional bravery rarely seen in young actresses. She wasn't afraid of pain, she used it. That trait would later become essential as life thrust her into battles that demanded the same courage she brought to the screen. By adulthood, Melissa had built a reputation not only as a gifted actress, but as someone unafraid to stand up for others. Her election as president of the Screen Actors Guild in 2001 was no accident. Hollywood trusted her. She spent 4 difficult years negotiating contracts, protecting health care, and fighting for better conditions for working actors. Those who worked alongside her saw not a former child star, but a warrior, someone who refused to let the industry chew people up the way it had done to so many before her, including some she loved. Yet even as she rose professionally, Melissa's life at home was a complex tapestry woven with passion, heartbreak, and rebirth. In 1988, she married actor Beau Brinkman, a relationship infused with the kind of intense energy that burns brightly but unevenly. The Sheen, Estevez family connection added to the spotlight, but it was the birth of their son, Dakota, in 1989 that truly changed her. Motherhood softened her edges and deepened her purpose. Still, the marriage eventually fractured under pressures neither could control. Their 1,994 divorce was painful, but Melissa emerged with a deeper understanding of herself, an understanding that would carry her into the next chapter. Just 1 year later, love found her again through a familiar Hollywood thread. Bruce Boxleitner, steady, charismatic, respected, entered her life at exactly the moment she needed calm and structure. Their 1,995 wedding blended star power with genuine tenderness. And soon, they were raising a beautifully blended family. When their son, Michael Garrett Boxleitner, was born later that year, Melissa honored her beloved mentor Michael Landon by giving her boy his name. That sentimental act said everything about how deeply she cherished those who shaped her. For 16 years, she and Boxleitner built a life that looked strong from the outside. Two respected actors raising children, building careers, and navigating the shifting tides of Hollywood. But even long-lasting relationships can reach breaking points. Their 2011 divorce was the end of an era for Melissa, leaving her to once again rebuild. Then came Timothy Busfield, a love that felt like destiny stepping in quietly, confidently. Known for 30-something and The West Wing, Busfield shared Melissa's appreciation for creativity, family, and a simpler life. Their 2013 marriage in Santa Barbara was intimate and sincere, two people choosing peace over glamour. They moved to the quiet town of Howell, Michigan, where Melissa rediscovered something she had lost in Hollywood: stillness. Renovating an old Victorian house became a form of healing for her, a way of grounding herself after decades of storms. She wrote more, reflected more, breathed more. And for 5 years, she lived a life as far from red carpets as one could imagine. But Melissa was never meant to disappear. In 2018, she and Busfield relocated to New York City, embracing its artistic pulse and energy. It was a return to the creative world, but on her own terms. She was older, wiser, healthier, prepared to speak truths she had once buried. And then came the moment that would send ripples through fans who had watched her grow from half-pint into a seasoned woman with stories etched into her soul. When Melissa finally opened up about Patty Duke, it felt less like gossip and more like a confession, long delayed. Patty Duke had always been a lightning bolt in Hollywood. Brilliant, unpredictable, haunted. Melissa had admired her since childhood, long before they worked together. But standing beside Patty during The Miracle Worker was the first time Melissa truly felt the storm up close. She was fearless, Melissa said. And older viewers, those who had seen Patty in The Miracle Worker, in Valley of the Dolls, in her groundbreaking series, knew exactly what she meant. Patty didn't just act. She exposed herself. Watching her was like witnessing a soul unravel and knit itself back together in real time. But as Melissa grew older, she realized that Patty's raw genius had come at a nearly unbearable cost. Patty's lifelong struggle with bipolar disorder, long misunderstood and stigmatized in Hollywood, was something nobody talked about openly back then. Young Melissa didn't understand the intensity, the mood swings, the shadows Patty carried. She only saw brilliance wrapped in turbulence. But later, after Melissa faced her own battles, addiction, heartbreak, exhaustion, she finally understood the weight Patty had been carrying all those years under blinding studio lights. Melissa admitted something she had never said aloud. "There were times when I felt like I was standing on the same edge Patty lived on." That honesty struck deeply for many Americans who grew up watching both women. Fame had a cost, and the cost was often paid in silence. Patty Duke's decision to publicly discuss her bipolar disorder in the 1,990 seconds had been groundbreaking. For Melissa, it was more than brave, it was liberating. Patty had shattered a wall long before Hollywood was ready to embrace mental health awareness. And she did it knowing the risk, knowing how brutally the industry judged its own. If she could survive it, Melissa said, there was hope for the rest of us. Day and way, 17's case. What struck Melissa Gilbert most wasn't just Patty Duke's extraordinary talent, it was the raw, unflinching humanity behind it. For decades, the world saw Patty as a brilliant actress, a shining star whose performances seemed effortless, almost otherworldly. But Melissa, who knew Patty in ways the cameras never could capture, recognized something far more profound. A woman who carried her wounds openly, a woman whose heart longed for love, whose spirit yearned for stability, and whose courage never faltered, even when life threatened to knock her down. Patty Duke wasn't simply a Hollywood icon. She was, in many ways, a warrior, a fragile yet fearless soul, navigating a world that rarely forgives vulnerability. And it was this delicate balance between brilliance and fragility that left an indelible mark on Melissa. Reflecting on her own life at 61, Melissa now sees the impact Patty's journey had on her understanding of what it means to be human. Watching Patty fight her private battles, often invisible to the public eye, taught Melissa lessons no classroom or rehearsal could provide. She learned that talent alone isn't enough to sustain a life. Compassion, resilience, and the willingness to confront one's own pain are what give meaning to a gift. And in acknowledging Patty's struggles, Melissa also acknowledged her own. The insecurities, the heartbreak, the silent battles that often accompany a life in the spotlight. In sharing her reflections today, Melissa Gilbert wasn't attempting to rewrite history. She wasn't trying to create a new narrative about Hollywood's golden age or elevate her own story above others. Instead, she illuminated truths that had long been overshadowed by fame and performance. She reminded audiences, especially older Americans, who grew up watching two extraordinary actresses etch their names into television history, that behind every triumph, behind every award-winning portrayal, there is a person wrestling with challenges that the world rarely sees. Her tribute to Patty Duke became more than admiration or nostalgia. It became a moment of closure, a gesture of gratitude, and a testament to the enduring power of vulnerability. Melissa's words carried weight because they were grounded in honesty. She didn't shy away from the darkness. She embraced it. She spoke of the long shadows cast by even the brightest stars, the quiet courage it takes to step into the light, and the freedom that comes from telling the truth. And in doing so, she offered a gift not only to Patty Duke's memory, but to everyone who has ever struggled in silence, the reassurance that struggles don't define us, they shape us. And when we share them, we give others permission to feel less alone, to find hope in their own lives. At 61, Melissa Gilbert finally did what she had been preparing for her entire life. She spoke openly, fearlessly, and from the heart. In honoring Patty Duke's legacy, she also honored her own journey, a journey marked by healing, acceptance, and the courage to live fully in the light, no matter how long the shadows. And in that telling, she reminded us all of a timeless truth. The most powerful legacies aren't just the performances we leave behind, but the honesty and humanity we carry forward.